Tick, tock, tick, tock. You hear that? That's the Doomsday Clock ticking away as every second we get closer to the blockbuster event of the year, Avengers Doomsday. For our first Avengers movie in 7 years, the hype is real for this film. Oh, okay, you can stop the ticking now, it's really getting annoying. Even with some questionable decisions they've made, I can't help but get excited to see a big MCU crossover again. It feels like a genuine event and has been really cool to see the MCU hit new highs as more people than ever are interested in what they're cooking up, especially those who dropped off the MCU after the last few years. That's where I come in. As someone who religiously watched every project far too many times, I wanted to break down the important ones to watch in preparation for Doomsday. There's gonna be some light spoilers ahead because I do have to justify these choices, but now you know, so please don't hurt me when I tell you that Tony Stark died in Endgame. So, whether you're a diehard Marvel fan looking to refresh your memory, or you haven't seen a Marvel movie in years, or maybe you've never watched one and want to be part of the fun, this is an insane place to start, but I got you covered. Here are the 10 MCU projects you need to watch ahead of Avengers Doomsday. Without a doubt, the movie that's going to have the most impact on Doomsday's story is Avengers Endgame, which is very convenient because the only people who haven't seen Endgame were born after the movie came out. It's long been rumored that Doomsday will act as a direct sequel to Endgame, building off plot threads from that movie to presumably explain why Doctor Doom is a familiar white guy now. Most notably though is the return of Chris Evans as Steve Rogers. The last time we saw him in the MCU was when he got his happy ending at the end of Endgame. God, I've already said end way too many times, it doesn't even feel like a real word anymore. Doomsday seems to be picking up slightly after that as he's a father now with his world presumably being threatened by Doom. That new direction of his character is going to be important to keep in mind heading into Doomsday, but that's not the only thing. Endgame was the first Marvel project to properly dive into time travel and multiversal exploration. They introduced these concepts and the drastic ramifications of them as the Avengers time heist put other universes in jeopardy if it didn't go off perfectly. When you mess with time, it tends to mess back seems to be a big theme of Doomsday as we're going to explore the effects of the Avengers' actions, especially Steve. His choice to live in another universe has been debated for years because of the logic behind it, but Doomsday is finally going to put that to bed. We're going to see the direct consequences of his actions as Steve's presence in this new universe causes an incursion that needs fixing. Endgame is the most obvious choice to watch for your Doomsday prep as they build on those stories in new and exciting ways. It's the biggest reference point casual audiences have for the MCU, so of course they would revolve Doomsday around it. Up next is a series that basically did the heavy lifting of multiversal world building in this saga, Loki. The best Marvel Studios series and a masterpiece in every possible way. The entire saga was worth it for this show alone. Considering how much groundwork both seasons laid in their own unique ways, I think all 12 episodes should be watched in anticipation of Doomsday. I know that sounds like a lot, but if there's anything you should watch, it's this. Loki does such a great job establishing the new status quo for Loki, and is pretty important considering he was dead as hell before this. But hey, for as sad as that was, look at him now. His arc was handled incredibly well and positioned him to play maybe the most important role in Doomsday. You need to watch Loki if you want to truly appreciate where he's at before they hopefully don't kill him off again. This series also introduces us to the Time Variance Authority, a cosmic, retrofuturistic bureaucratic organization that exists outside of time, dedicated to protecting the sacred timeline and preventing a multiversal war. The same one that Avengers Doomsday is going to kickstart, so you can see why this is important. Even though Marvel heavily pivoted away from Kang, who this series was doing a great job setting up, it does a lot to expand on the rules of the multiverse that are going to be extremely important for Doomsday. The concept of variance is explained in depth, which is necessary information when it comes to White Doom, and the debate over free will is a direct cause of where we are now, but it's the void that I think will play the most important role. Not the dimension of pure depression and shame, which is also what they call my bedroom, but the metaphysical It's so depressing. But the metaphysical dimension at the end of time where the TVA sends all of the junk from the timelines they prune. I have a strong feeling this place is going to become Battleworld after Doom rewrites the multiverse, so it's very important you watch Loki and familiarize yourself with how it works. And again, all of those rules aren't even getting into just how well Loki's character arc is handled and the important role they position him for Doomsday. He's going to be a central figure in this film and someone I feel like Doctor Doom is going to be directly after. After that is a movie most people wouldn't expect, but one that sets up maybe more than any other film in the multiverse saga. I'm talking about The Marvels. Hopefully this Doomsday prep will open people's eyes to how underrated this movie is, but it also quietly set us up for Doomsday's inciting incident. The end of The Marvels saw Monica Rambeau get stranded in another universe after sacrificing herself to close a rift in space. Nothing too crazy, happens pretty much every other week in the MCU, but it's the universe she ends up in that's a huge deal. The post-credit scene revealed that Monica was trapped alongside the Fox X-Men as Beast began taking care of her, effectively pushing over the first domino towards Doomsday. Monica landing herself in another universe is bound to cause an incursion and could be how the X-Men find themselves pulled into this story. Whether it be Monica's presence itself in that universe or someone like Carol going to rescue her, an incursion is bound to happen and will naturally put things in motion for the MCU to fight the X-Men. Plus, even if it may have been man-made, the Marvels may have offered a potential solution for how to stop an incursion from happening. A tactic like that could really come in handy during Doomsday. And if all that wasn't exciting enough, the last thing the Marvels did that's worth mentioning involved the formation of the Young Avengers / Champions / whatever they end up being called. While neither Kamala or Kate Bishop have been announced for Doomsday, some concept art leaked a lifetime ago that included them alongside the rest of the team, and a recent rumor mentioned them by name appearing in the film, so I think it's safe to say they're gonna be in Doomsday. This movie was the first time, after years of setting things up, that Marvel finally decided to assemble a team for the Young Avengers, so it's just another thing to prepare yourself with in Doomsday. Plus, it's never a bad thing to see Kate Bishop. You should always want to see Kate Bishop. Whenever Kate Bishop isn't on screen, all the other characters should be asking, where's Kate Bishop? But here's the thing. The next project that's required viewing is, of course, the Fantastic Four First Steps. Yes, I did delay talking about this just so it could be number 4 on this list. Never stop committing to the bit. It's pretty obvious why this movie needs to be seen, right? When talking about the movie where Doctor Doom is the big bad, you're gonna want to study up on the Fantastic Four, especially considering that this movie is so good. It's one of my favorite superhero films of all time. It only took us 4 goddamn tries to do them right, but I have to respect how poetic that is. It is a perfect adaptation of each member of the family that finally does them justice and positions the team to be one of the faces of the MCU going forward. So on the sheer basis of getting a proper understanding of who the Fantastic Four are and how they work, you need to watch this movie. Most of the characters in Doomsday audiences should be familiar with, but the Fantastic Four made their first appearance last year, so new audiences need to catch up on this. It's also an important watch because it establishes an entirely new universe. While the main MCU takes place in Earth 616, 199999 if you're a real one, First Steps is on Earth 828, a beautifully retro-futuristic 60s utopia that feels like the comics come to life in the most dazzling ways possible. It's completely unique to any other timeline and is the first time an MCU movie has taken place entirely in another universe. 828 is going to play a big role in Doomsday as characters are going back and forth from universe to universe, along with the oncoming threat of an incursion potentially making the Fantastic Four and the Avengers decide who lives and who dies. But even more than that, it sets the stage for Doomsday as we almost got to see Doctor Doom's ugly ass in the flesh. It's more so a Doctor Doom backshot, but the idea that Doom is after Franklin is basically our first in-universe indication of Doomsday's story. It's still way too early to say if this is 828 Doctor Doom or another variant, but he's making his presence known in an insanely bold way, so that better guarantee a watch from you. All we know is that Doom is going to kidnap a child, and it's up to you to watch the Fantastic Four to find out why. Alright, that brings me to another movie because that's how these lists work. I am demanding that you watch Thunderbolts **. Not just because the Fantastic Four tease meeting them in the post-credit scene, but because of how the Thunderbolts are going to be a cornerstone of Doomsday. Also because not enough people saw it in theaters and I will never stop telling everyone to watch this movie. It is a touching and cathartic film about self-discovery that just so happens to have a big depression monster in it. Such an incredible film and one that's going to be key in understanding Doomsday, especially if you've been checked out of the MCU for a bit. Alright, get this. 29 people have been officially announced as part of Avengers Doomsday's cast, and 6 of them all come from Thunderbolts. That's just about 20% of the cast coming entirely from Thunderbolts **, so it is a clear sign you need to watch this movie. This movie reintroduces a ton of characters and gives you the rundown of their backstories, so it saves you some time from watching all the other projects. You'll get a great understanding of Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, John Walker, Ava Starr, Alexei Shostakov, Bob Reynolds, and of course Anatonia Master, masters. She might be the most important character going into Doomsday, honestly. Now that the Thunderbolts asterisk are the asterisk new Avengers, they have been thrust into the spotlight and now have to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. It's a really exciting spot to see these outcasts stuck in, and that emotional weight is only going to hit if you've seen this movie. Otherwise, you might actually start rooting against them, and if you boo Ghost, I will personally find you and shoot you in the head, which definitely isn't a reference to anything. Thunderbolts is incredibly important in understanding their journey as underdogs and presenting the conflict between the new Avengers and the Avengers. Which is why you also need to watch Captain America Brave New World. And I'm not just saying that because if I don't glaze Captain America every 5 minutes, I'll die. I truly believe that Brave New World is an important watch if you want to appreciate this new Avengers vs. Avengers Civil War they're setting up, only this one is going to be fought in a courtroom rather than destroying an airport. Brave New World saw Sam Wilson approached by President Thaddeus Red Harrison Ford Ross with an offer to restart the Avengers as an official government organization. Then, over the course of the movie, Sam's patience with the government is tested as he sees firsthand the cracks in the system and the need for an outside force to protect the world. So when the new Avengers are announced, it immediately puts Sam's team in conflict with them. Which team is the real Avengers? Should the Avengers be backed by the government? How are they going to navigate this minefield? All of that is going to be answered in Doomsday, but it's Brave New World that sets up that conflict and positions Sam Wilson at the forefront of it. Besides that, I also think that Brave New World is important to watch because of how it establishes Sam as the Captain America right now. With Chris Evans returning as only Steve Rogers, it's more important than ever to cement Sam's place as Captain America. He finally got to graduate from being a sidekick as he was the star of his own film, showing off all of his traits as a leader that you are much better off seeing. To change the pace real quick, let's talk about another essential movie to watch, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. There are going to be 4 major factions in this movie: the Fantastic Four, the Ununified Avengers, the X-Men, and the Wakandans, so it's about time we talked about them. After the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman, the Wakandan side of the MCU underwent a huge status quo shift to try and move forward. The result was a beautiful story about grief that gave us both a new Black Panther and King of Wakanda. Shuri suffered a fate worse than death at least 3 different times before getting a handle on her grief and accepting her role as the new Black Panther. Meanwhile, M'Baku stepped up as king to help her with that burden of running a country as they tried to navigate this cold world they now rule over. Both of them are set to play a huge role in Doomsday as they seem to be the first group to intercept the Fantastic Four's ship. You're going to want to have a solid understanding of how things are going over in Wakanda to not be caught by surprise seeing things operate like this now. Most importantly, when it comes to their partnership with Namor and the underwater kingdom of Talokan. Namor made his debut in Wakanda Forever as the antagonist, and while he may have made this deal as a sign of good faith, his intentions are a lot more sinister as he waits for Wakanda to come crawling back to him for help. I think Doomsday is really going to put that alliance to the test as Doom arrives and challenges everything they thought they knew. Maybe Namor is going to betray Wakanda to guarantee a future for his people alongside Doom. If something like that happens, you are going to be so glad you watched Wakanda Forever to have a deeper appreciation for that story and how we got to that point. Another character you're going to want to brush up on is Shang-Chi, so you better get watching Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. It has been a while since Shang-Chi released all the way back in September of 2021. That's going to be over 5 years by the time Doomsday releases. That's crazy and very upsetting. Even more upsetting than that, though, is the fact that we haven't seen Shang-Chi since then. Unless you count his small role in Marvel Zombies or his What If episode alongside my beloved cowgirl Kate Bishop, but I'm still not sure if anybody else watched those besides me. What I'm trying to say is that Shang-Chi is finally making his live-action return in Doomsday. Shang-Chi has the potential to be one of the best and most important MCU characters in this film with how strong his movies started things off for him, and I fully expect his star to shine brighter than ever as we see him fight alongside the Avengers. Before the great pivot of 2024, Shang-Chi was supposed to play a massive role in Avengers Kang Dynasty, a movie that had Destin Daniel Cretton attached to direct at the time. Ah man, what could have been? But regardless of any what ifs, hello again cowgirl Kate Bishop, I expect Shang-Chi to play a big role in Doomsday as well. The Ten Rings were originally supposed to be something Kang was after, and I could easily see them becoming a MacGuffin for Doctor Doom to try and get his hands on. In that case, you need to watch Shang-Chi already, man. What are you waiting for? It is such a great movie that ended with Shang-Chi being positioned as a potential member of the Avengers. Doomsday will finally make good on that promise, and trust me, you're gonna want to see what he's capable of. That man is a demon without those rings. With them, he's gonna be a real problem. The second to last project I want to mention is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I would say I'm surprised it's taken us so long to get to this one because I think it set up some huge ideas for Doomsday to play around with, but I made the list. I knew this was coming. While Benedict Cumberbatch still can't make up his mind on if he's in the movie or not, I'd be shocked if the Doctor wasn't in. Multiverse of Madness is the movie that kicked the door wide open on the concept of the multiverse as Strange went on his little multiversal tour. Interestingly enough, we even get to see a decaying universe that's dying due to an incursion in that movie, and that feels like foreshadowing if I've ever seen it, but it's the ending that's most important to the Doomsday prep. Clea, the Sorcerer Supreme of the Dark Dimension, finally decided to show up in the MCU and warned Strange of an incursion he caused. It's very clear to me that this was done to set up a time runs out-esque story that I can only imagine Doomsday is going to adapt. The whole Doomsday Clock gimmick is a fun way to literally reference that in real time. It cannot be overstated enough just how much Multiverse of Madness sets the stage for Doomsday as Strange begins meddling with the multiverse and inadvertently starts a chain of events that will lead to the destruction of everything. No big deal, man. It's not like this is partially your fault or anything. It's best to revisit Multiverse of Madness and see everything Strange did so you know why the multiverse is in chaos. Plus, it's a great movie to watch if you want to see Professor X die again. Let's run that back one more time, shall we? In slow motion as well. Yeah, there we go. That's the good stuff. And finally, the last movie you should watch before Avengers Doomsday is Deadpool and Wolverine. I thought long and hard about what the best X-Men film to watch for Doomsday would be, and I got a headache. The X-Men timeline is a mess, and you couldn't pay me enough to unravel it, but Deadpool and Wolverine makes the most sense to me. It's the furthest film along in a non-apocalyptic X-Men timeline, and has the most direct connections to the MCU. Deadpool exists in the revised timeline where everybody is alive that I assume we'll see the full team come from in Doomsday, now just with two Wolverines alive at the same time, but don't think about it too much or your brain will explode. Just enjoy the movie and all the new ideas it introduces. The most important one is that of an anchor being, a person of utmost importance whose existence maintains the stability of a universe, and once they die, the universe itself begins to slowly die off. It's basically just a meta concept to reflect Wolverine's role in the Fox X-Men, but now everyone is wondering who the anchor being of the MCU was, and Doomsday might just answer it. Deadpool and Wolverine also brings back the TVA post-Loki Season 2 and gives us a good look at how they're currently operating without Kang, with B-15 now running the place. It's already been confirmed that the TVA will appear in Doomsday, so it is best to keep up with their activities. Interestingly, we also get to explore the Void more in this film as we see the Mad Max-esque world they have going on down there, which I am so sure will be massively important in the future. While it's still hard to say if Deadpool and Wolverine themselves will appear in Doomsday, there have been so many conflicting reports, we at least know that Gambit is in the movie and this is the only place to watch him. I assume he returned back to the X-Men timeline Doomsday picks up in as well, but that is enough thinking about the X-Men timelines for today. What matters most is that Deadpool and Wolverine is a very significant film that gets us closer than ever to the Doomsday Clock striking midnight. And there we have it, the 10 most essential films to watch in the build-up to Avengers Doomsday later this year. A very manageable amount that will get you caught up and paint a very detailed picture of the story Marvel is trying to tell. If you start now and watch one per week, you will be finished with more than enough time to pressure your friends into watching this video and doing it too. Please. At the very least, this is just what everyone should be familiar with if you want to be a real Doomsday prepper. Or, if you got more time on your hands, I have a bonus list of even more projects you should consider watching. And let's be real, you're 20 minutes into a video about movies to watch. I think you can spare the time. I know I just said no more X-Men timeline talk, but I promise this is the last one. Days of Future Past is maybe the best live-action X-Men movie and tells you everything you need to know about that universe. There's way too much X-Men history to watch ahead of time, so don't even bother trying to, but I am confident Days of Future Past stands alone enough to fill you in on what you need to know if you haven't seen any of those movies. It spares you from watching all the Fox films as you get to see an insane X-Men time travel story that I can only assume will have massive ramifications on Doomsday, especially since it seems like we're picking up with the team in that very same revised timeline Days of Future Past directly created, so you might as well watch it to see how we got there in the first place. Then there's Spider-Man No Way Home, a movie I really wanted to include in the top 10, but since there isn't a single person in it confirmed for Doomsday, I couldn't justify it. Despite that, this is the closest the MCU has ever gotten to a proper incursion. Peter ruining Strange's spell had drastic consequences for the entire multiverse that are still being felt to this day. I wouldn't be surprised if this is what started the chain reaction causing Strange's incursion at the end of Multiverse of Madness in the first place. No Way Home, more than any other MCU project, does a great job showing the variety of variants and should be watched for that alone. And also for the fact that it's basically a perfect movie and I will fight anyone who says otherwise. What's not a perfect movie though is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but I'm still going to include it anyway. You're a diehard if you've made it this far. I don't want to hear any excuses. Quantumania was supposed to be this massive event that put us on track towards the Kang Dynasty. And then, well, you know, everything fell apart in every possible way and now Doomsday took its place. Regardless, Quantumania set up so much for this big Avengers crossover that I would be shocked if plot elements didn't carry over from that. There is still an army of Kangs out there waiting to be slaughtered by Doctor Doom in an opening action scene. Also, Scott's paranoia of something bad happening is most likely going to be a factor in Doomsday, so you gotta watch Quantumania to see why he's so worried. And while we're talking about movies that everybody loves, Thor: Love and Thunder is starting to feel more important day by day. Not for the mighty Thor, or Valkyrie, or Gore the God Butcher, or anything that happened in New Asgard, but for the sheer fact that Thor adopts a kid at the end of that film. And she's back for Doomsday. For a lot of people, Thor randomly being a girl dad is going to be a shock, but not for you. You can watch Thor: Love and Thunder and leave with the knowledge of how he came into possession of that child, her wild lineage, otherworldly abilities, and a sinking feeling in your chest from having to rewatch Love and Thunder again. Hooray! The last few projects I'm going to group together because they basically exist to fill the gaps for movies like Thunderbolts and Brave New World. Black Widow introduces massively important characters for the future of the MCU like Yelena Belova, Red Guardian, and of course Taskmaster. While I definitely think Thunderbolts stands alone, it wouldn't hurt to see these characters ahead of time to have a deeper appreciation of where they came from. The same can be said for The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a severely underrated series that gave Sam and Bucky a ton of important character growth, all while starting the tragedy of John Walker. All three of them are set to play big roles in Avengers Doomsday, so you're definitely going to want to see that show. And finally, the only other Infinity Saga movie on this list, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I mainly just want you to watch it to see more of Ghost, because Ghost is an Avenger now, and that's awesome. So everybody go watch more Ghost! And that's actually everything. With those extra 7 projects, you will have more than enough context for everything that happens in Avengers Doomsday. I hope. If you start now, you'll even finish by whatever number's on screen. I don't know, I'm recording this weeks in advance. And then you will be fully prepared for everything that happens in Doomsday. Well, I mean, that's just everything officially confirmed for the film. If you really want to be ready for everything Doomsday has to offer, you might want to watch a few more shows that have some characters that haven't even been announced yet for the film. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, there are so many rumored characters to appear in this movie. We have just gotten started on this list. Like the 6-episode event Ms. Marvel introducing Kamala Khan, the only pure ray of sunshine in this universe, along with her bangle, a very significant object that was set to play an important role in the Kang Dynasty, as it was another thing Kang was after, so maybe that gets carried over as well. Ms. Marvel also deals with time travel as Kamala goes back in time, so maybe that's gonna play a role in Doomsday. And while we're talking about Kamala, we might as well get the rest of the Young Avengers. Let's go to the 6-episode event Hawkeye. You want to see Kate Bishop, right? Everybody should want to see more Kate Bishop. She is the only other confirmed member of this team up to this point, so you gotta go back and watch her origin story. But why stop there at those two when we have this concept art to go off of? That's Billy and Tommy right there, so you gotta go watch all 9 episodes of WandaVision now. Who knows, maybe the Scarlet Witch herself is going to appear in this film. She's been rumored for a while now, and her reality-altering abilities could be huge for Doom. But besides Wanda, if you want to keep going down that Young Avengers rabbit hole, you gotta go watch all 9 episodes of Agatha All Along to see Billy Kaplan get reincarnated as Wiccan. He's gonna be huge for this movie. And while we're talking about leaked concept art, this picture of She-Hulk alongside the Hulk appeared, so go watch every episode of She-Hulk now. And I mean, we're already this far into the rumors, we gotta consider the fact that Wonder Man of all characters was just rumored for Avengers Doomsday, so now you've gotta go watch all 8 amazing episodes of Wonder Man, because maybe Simon Williams is going to appear with Trevor the Mandarin Slattery. But how are you gonna understand Wonder Man if you haven't seen Iron Man 3? So you gotta watch the entire Iron Man trilogy as well, especially because the Doctor Doom reveal isn't gonna hit as hard if you don't know who Tony Stark is. So that's Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, and Iron Man 3 added to the list. Why stop there though? In for a penny, in for a pound. You might as well keep going and watch all the Captain America movies to familiarize yourself with Stan Wilson and Steve Rogers' journey up to this point. So that's Captain America the First Avenger, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and Captain America Civil War. But Captain America Civil War doesn't make sense if you haven't seen all the other Avengers movies up to that point. So we have to add in the Avengers 2012 and Avengers Age of Ultron. But then there's that weird scene in Age of Ultron where Thor takes a bath and that leads to Infinity War. So let's go add Infinity War in there. But a character like Thor plays such a big role in Infinity War, so you gotta watch Thor Ragnarok, and you gotta watch Thor the Dark World, and you gotta watch Thor to really appreciate his journey and why he needs peace now. And now that you're watching Infinity War, there are so many other movies you need to see for that to make sense. How are you supposed to understand Thanos fighting this random wizard if you haven't seen Doctor Strange, which also introduces the concept of the multiverse itself, the backbone of this entire story? Then there's also something like the first Black Panther movie, which introduced us to the entire world of Wakanda. We're rumored to see a new Black Panther in this movie as well, so you might as well go back to where it all started started to familiarize yourself with those concepts. And I mean, I made you watch Avengers Endgame for this. You need to go back to watch Ant-Man. He saved the universe with the help of a rat. That feels important, and you need to understand who Scott Lang is and why he has this shady backstory. And while we're talking about Endgame, how are you supposed to have understood that movie without seeing Captain Marvel beforehand? So you gotta go watch Captain Marvel now. And we've already gotten this far, so you might as well go watch The Incredible Hulk as well, because Captain America Brave New World will not have made sense without seeing that movie. Then, we've already talked about some other rumored characters. We might as well consider the fact that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is rumored for Doomsday for some reason, so you need to go watch his entire original Spider-Man trilogy, Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3. Especially if you're gonna watch No Way Home, you need that nostalgia. You need it. Oh god, I'm so sorry. I just went into a flow state. But I think we're definitely done. There is definitely nothing else to talk about. There's no other movies that would make sense for other movies. Fine, I'll talk about the X-Men timeline. I guess I lied. You can't exactly watch Deadpool and Wolverine or Days of Future Past without understanding how the X-Men timeline works, and nobody understands how the X-Men timeline works. Anyone who says they do is lying to you. So we might as well just start back at the beginning with X-Men, and then from there, you gotta watch X2, X-Men United, the quintessential X-Men movie that does the foundational building block for that universe. But you can't watch X2 without watching X-Men Origins Wolverine, because it flashes back to the events of that movie. And then from there, a movie like X-Men The Last Stand, a mandatory film to watch if you want to be as angry as I am about how they treated Cyclops in this universe, so you can truly appreciate what they do with him in Doomsday. And you're not gonna care about someone like Hugh Jackman if you don't watch the entire Wolverine trilogy, so you gotta go throw the Wolverine in there. And all of that is just from one timeline. Then they reboot the damn thing with a prequel series in X-Men First Class, which you have to watch beforehand if you want to understand Days of Future Past, because it introduces a whole new young cast of X-Men characters. And then those characters go on to star in X-Men Apocalypse, the first movie in the revised timeline after Days of Future Past. It's not very good, but you need to watch it now to understand this whole revised timeline crap. Then there's the last movie from that universe, Dark Phoenix, a movie that makes no sense and contradicts everything we already know to that point, as Mystique is dead in that universe and will be alive in Doomsday. And that's not even considering movies like Deadpool. How are you supposed to understand Deadpool and Wolverine if you don't know why Deadpool is like this in the first place? So go watch Deadpool, and then go watch Deadpool 2, a movie that has time travel that is directly mentioned in Deadpool and Wolverine, so you gotta understand what that whole thing was about. Then here's the real kicker. Just when you think we're done, there's a whole other timeline branching off from X-Men The Last Stand taking place in the far future where Logan happens. And Deadpool and Wolverine does not make sense without watching Logan beforehand. How are you supposed to know who this skeleton is if you haven't cried like the rest of us watching Logan die? As if that whole list wasn't more than enough for you though, we also have to throw in the New Mutants in there, a movie that did somehow release because it sets the stage for Logan and the mutant apocalypse. God, I'm exhausted, but I think that's everything. Every single past MCU project you're gonna need to have seen before Doomsday. That's 55 of them. If you watch one a week, you would have needed to start 3 months ago. Good luck watching every single past Marvel movie and show that you're gonna need to... Oh god, that's just the past. We haven't even talked about the future. We don't even know if Spider-Man Brand New Day or Vision Quest is gonna be important to this film. No! This curse will never end. There's always more to watch. Just watch everything at this point. Watch every single Marvel movie and show, except for Secret Invasion. Fuck Secret Invasion. I can't do this anymore. It just keeps going. I'm done. No outro. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.